It began with a single whisper, the kind that drifts through studio lots long after the trailers have emptied and the lights have been shut off. A whisper that carried a name, carried a history, and carried a question that would linger for decades. Why did Sally Field, the warm, smiling, beloved star of some of America's most iconic films, harbor a private storm toward a man she once shared the screen with? And why did that storm run deeper than anyone suspected? No one could have predicted it during those early days, when Sally was young, wide-eyed, and trying to find her place in an industry that didn't quite know what to do with a girl like her. She was talented, earnest, complex, too complex, perhaps for a Hollywood machine that preferred its actresses simple and compliant. And standing opposite her, in those brightly lit sound stages filled with canned laughter and carefully choreographed lines, was a man who embodied the old guard of show business. Someone respected, someone admired, someone who, in the public eye, seemed charming enough. But charm doesn't always survive behind the curtain, and the chemistry you see on screen isn't always born from harmony. The tension didn't start with shouting. It didn't start with insults. It started in moments so small, so subtle, that only someone paying very close attention would notice. A tone that lingered a second too long, a look that carried unspoken judgment, a comment made under the breath but loud enough to sting. Sally was young, too young to fully understand why the air around her partner felt heavy, and yet she felt it undeniably. As the cameras rolled, she delivered her lines with the sweetness audiences adored. But behind that sweetness, doubts began to form. Was she truly respected? Was she truly valued? Or was she just another young actress being shaped, confined, and critiqued by a man who couldn't imagine her ever growing beyond the version of her he had in his head? Sometimes the smallest indignities cut the deepest. And day after day, Sally carried that weight quietly, privately, never wanting to betray the professionalism that kept her career afloat. But every story has a turning point. And for Sally, it came one afternoon in a rehearsal room that smelled of dust, cold coffee, and old carpet. The kind of room where dreams are built, but also where spirits can be broken. Something was said, the exact phrasing lost to time. Something sharp, something diminishing, something wrapped in that condescending humor people use when they want their cruelty to sound like a joke. Sally stood there, blinking, trying to swallow the lump rising in her throat. She felt the room tilt slightly, the laughter of a few nearby crew members echoing in her ears. And something inside her quietly snapped. It wasn't rage, it wasn't theatrics. It was realization. Realization that she deserved more respect than she was being given. Realization that kindness wasn't weakness. And realization that the man standing across from her, this man, she would someday admit, she resented more deeply than almost anyone she had ever worked with, would never see her the way she deserved to be seen. From that moment on, the relationship changed. They continued to work together. Of course, they smiled for photos, delivered lines perfectly, gave interviews that painted their working relationship in glowing colors. Hollywood loves its illusions, after all. But something unseen was growing beneath the surface. A quiet, simmering dislike that only intensified as Sally matured and found her voice. The industry began to notice Sally's evolution. She wasn't the ingenue anymore. She was becoming something powerful, a force. Roles began to change. Scripts grew richer. Directors took her seriously. And with every new achievement, every award, every step toward the respect she had long deserved, the dynamic with the man she once worked beside shifted again. He didn't handle her growth well. That was the truth. Sally would later hint at never naming him in the way tabloids demanded, but never denying the emotional reality either. His discomfort, his dismissiveness, his subtle digs had never been about her being wrong. They had been about her being strong. And strength can intimidate those who built their identity on authority. They would cross paths again years later, older, wiser, carrying their individual histories like invisible luggage. Sally had transformed, no longer the uncertain young actress trying to find her footing, but an award-winning performer whose depth and honesty had captivated the world. He, too, had aged, the polished surfaces of his persona beginning to show cracks. And yet, even with all the time that had passed, the air between them remained unchanged. Polite, yes, civil, naturally, but underneath, the tension hummed like a low electrical current, a reminder of wounds never healed. A reminder of the girl she once was, and the man who helped shape her sense of mistrust, one cutting remark at a time. Was it hatred? That word feels too sharp, too loud, too easy. But Sally chose her words carefully when she spoke about him years later. She didn't use cruelty. She didn't attack. She simply revealed the truth. Of all the people she ever worked with, he was the one she struggled with most. The one who made her feel small. The one whose presence left a shadow she couldn't ignore. Why did her feelings run so deep? What powerful emotions did he stir in her that lingered decades beyond their time together? Was it because he represented an era of Hollywood that tried to keep women like her in neat little boxers? Or was it because he embodied her own early self-doubt, the kind she spent a lifetime trying to overcome? These questions shaped the heart of their story, and maybe the answers live somewhere between memory and interpretation. Human relationships, after all, are rarely simple. and resentment often grows from a wound no one else can see. But here's the twist. No one talks about, sometimes the person we hate the most isn't an enemy. Sometimes they're a mirror. Sometimes they show us who we refuse to be, who will fight to grow beyond, who will never let define us. For Sally, that man may have been the catalyst she never asked for, the one who pushed her, unintentionally, toward independence, strength, self. She didn't need his approval. She never truly did, but the hurt he caused lit a fire she eventually learned how to use. As Sally's career flourished, she moved further and further from the life she once inhabited with him. She built a legacy defined not by bitterness but by authenticity. Films that touched hearts, roles that explored the complexities of womanhood, performances that earned standing ovations and cemented her place in cinema history. Meanwhile, his legacy took its own path. Successful, yes. Respected, certainly, but tinged with the subtle awareness that time changes perspectives. Today, people look back at the era he came from with a different lens, a more critical one, and perhaps, had he been born in a different time, he would have learned to treat his young co-star differently, or perhaps not. What makes this story so compelling is that it raises questions without neatly answering them. It invites us to consider the invisible battles people fight while the cameras roll. It asks us to wonder how many actors smile through pain, how many swallow disrespect, how many rise in spite of it. Sally Field rose. Again and again, she reinvented herself in ways Hollywood rarely allows. She shook off the labels, defied expectations, and stepped into a future no one imagined for her. And maybe, in a strange, unintended way, her resentment for him, the man she said she disliked more than anyone, became her secret fuel. Imagine being her, decades later, reflecting on a career filled with triumphs, heartbreaks, Imagine looking back at the man who once made you feel powerless and realizing you became powerful anyway. Would you forgive him? Would you still resent him? Or would you simply accept that some people enter your life not to lift you up, but to teach you what you will no longer tolerate? That's the mystery that lingers, the open wound that never fully closes, the unanswered question that makes this story so haunting. Was her resentment truly about him? Or was it about the younger version of herself who didn't yet know she was extraordinary? Every actor has a story behind the smile. Every set has a tension behind the scenes. And every beloved star carries scars we never see. Sally Field's journey is one of resilience, transformation, and honesty. She never pretended her experiences were perfect. She never hid the complexities. She spoke her truth not to tear someone down, but to reclaim the parts of herself that once felt overshadowed. And maybe that's why her words struck such a chord. Because everyone has someone in their past who made them feel small. Everyone has a person whose memory carries a sting. Everyone has faced the choice of rising above the pain, or letting it define them. Sally chose to rise. Her story reminds us that we are not defined by the people who underestimate us. We are defined by the strength we build in response. And sometimes, the person we resent the most is the very person who unintentionally helped shape the strongest version of who we become. So the question remains, what do we owe to those who hurt us? Gratitude, forgiveness, nothing at all. And deeper still, who is the him in your story? The one who pushed you, challenged you, belittled you, or doubted you? And what have you become in spite of them? The answers, like Sally's truth, may lie somewhere between memory, emotion, and the long, winding journey of finding your own voice, no matter who tries to silence it.